Negotiation isn't an event, it's a journey. Negotiation is also a mindset. It's a way to navigate your world every day. Channel your inner Bruce Lee and you'll embrace this very mindset.
Put that coffee down.
Creators are leaders. Be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here.
Helen, we're both in sales. Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
They realized that to be in power, you didn't need guns or money or even numbers. You just needed the will to do what the other guy wouldn't.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Construction Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Bradley Hartman. We are wrapping up our launch of the OSR Academy for 2023. It is our second cohort. So if you have missed any of the free tools that we gave away, these were the tools and frameworks that we use from inside the OSR Academy. And our approach was, well, why don't we give these away for free? And if they resonate for a subset of our audience and they're interested in joining the Academy and enrolling in one of the few remaining seats, fantastic. We would love to have you and we can talk about that. If not, take these free training tools and help build a better salesperson who does not annoy the people who are trying so hard to build America. So through our newsletter and our podcast over the last week and a half or so, we've given away some content about pain quantification and why the hero must suffer. I would argue whether you're a project manager, a CEO, a general manager, and especially a salesperson, one of the most valuable skills you can develop is this idea of pain quantification, of when you come across a problem or a challenge, you get information from someone else to really understand the size of the problem. And once you understand the size of the problem, it'll give you more angles and more alternatives to develop solutions that can solve that. And often, human beings drastically undervalue the pain that they are in because they don't even want to know. We don't even want to know how much pain we're in. It's such a big problem. And those we should absolutely start valuing. So I will argue, regardless of what project you're working in, regardless of what role you are currently in, if you can master this concept of pain quantification up front, it's going to save you time. And later, it's going to save you effort, energy, and frustration that is going to come about in negotiation. And that's what we're going to talk about here today as I share some of the content from chapter 2 in my new short book on negotiating specifically in the construction industry. Now, last week, we also gave away some other writing that we've done based on a custom case study specific to the LBM industry regarding a general contractor in Cleveland and some of the challenges that they're having. We made that freely available to share with your team. And earlier this week, we gave away a free worksheet to help sales professionals. And again, this would apply to anybody. We gave away this worksheet to help people introduce themselves in a way that encourages a follow-up conversation. And so many people in our industry struggle with how to introduce themselves. And it's a somewhat ridiculous problem because we know when we meet someone, they're going to say, what do you do? What's your role? How do you help people? And so many salespeople fail to say something that encourages people to lean in and continue the conversation to see if we're a fit so we can work together. So our solution to this is something we call the movie trailer pitch, and it can solve this problem relatively quickly. So again, we made that freely downloadable. If you want any of this information and you missed out on it, but you're curious, you can feel free to email me directly at bradley@bradleyhartmanandco.com. And today I'm excited to talk about negotiation. In our personal and professional lives, we negotiate all the time, yet so few people have consistent frameworks and mental models they use to negotiate better. Now, so many people only really think about negotiations when they're buying something big, like a car or a house. And then we frantically Google negotiation skills or we talk to somebody who's an expert in this. Otherwise, we largely don't think about negotiation very often. And I can tell you from a business perspective, as a former area purchasing manager, I was buying material and labor, pretty much insulation and anything that came after it, material and labor. I bought for 7 markets from Cleveland to Denver. I did this for 4 years. I met with all sorts of salespeople and I negotiated with them. I negotiated with executives as we tried to figure out the best way that we could partner. And I learned a ton from those interactions and I fell in love with this collaboration that comes together. And ideally, many of us know this, you're looking for a win-win because you can have a lopsided negotiation, but at the end of the day, you have to implement it. And implementation in the construction industry is not easy and it takes a long time. So there has to be trust. There has to be a strong relationship. So as part of our professional sales field manual series that we developed specifically for the construction industry, our 2 most popular courses right now are prospecting, as you might assume, and time management. And the next one that's coming out very shortly here in July is negotiations. We have video content with it. We have audio content to go with it. We have a downloadable workbook. And I've written a book. It's about 150 pages, large font, lots of photos, easy to read. We wanted to make this very actionable and very similar to the military field manuals on a single topic that everybody can read relatively easily and enjoy it because it's specific and relevant to what we're doing. And whether we know it or not, we all negotiate every single day, or in some cases, we deliberately do not negotiate because we can't handle these feelings and we feel a little bit icky when we have to talk about money and we don't know how to do that, but it's all around us. At the end of May 27th to 28th, the weekend edition of the Wall Street Journal, they came out with a big article called The Complete Guide to Haggling. And then really they talked about hard bargaining, for collaborative negotiation, for haggling, which is a very specific thing. And they kind of smashed this all together, whether you were trying to negotiate medical bills or a new cell phone or internet access or a home mortgage or a car or a hotel. And I would argue that some of these, yes, if you're solely talking about price and you're asking for a lower price unilaterally without addressing any other aspects of the deal, yes, that is haggling. However, with a home mortgage or a new cell phone or a car rental or a hotel reservation, I would argue straight haggling is not the best way to do it. There's a lot of other aspects that you could bring in to ask for value in other ways. You can make other concessions. So while in general, I would encourage you to go read that, I think any sort of content, information, and experts that can share tips and tricks on how to think about negotiation better, to understand what it is and how you can practice it, because I firmly believe that you cannot be a good negotiator in a business setting if you are not a good negotiator in your personal life, and vice versa. So any sort of content out there that gets you thinking about this and hopefully encourages you to practice a little bit, I think would all be beneficial. So what I'd like to do here is share some content from my new book on negotiation from our professional sales field manual series. It is Field Manual 04-22. And here is my approach to these. I will buy all of the books that are relevant, that are kind of classics in this genre. And when you think about negotiation books, you got Getting to Yes, Getting Past No, there's Start with No, and believe it or not, there are some best-selling books that do not use yes or no in the title. Oh, you got Beyond Reason, Say Less, Get More, Bargaining for Advantage. You got a Herb Cohen classic called You Can Negotiate Anything, How to Get What You Want. And of course, more recently, you may have heard of Chris Voss's book that he wrote with a guy named Tal Raz called Never Split the Difference. I get all these books, and for this one, I read about 14 books or reviewed them. And what I want to do is understand what the literature is that is out there. I want to think back on my training for the construction industry and the way I negotiate now, and help many of our clients on specific deals that are high value deals that they want to make sure they truly prepare for and are really thoughtful for. And then what I say is, okay, of all that literature that is out there, what is relevant to us? And some of these basics are relevant in all of the books. However, there's a lot of stuff that's out there that quite frankly isn't useful in the construction industry. So I try to distill that down, highlight the most essential things, throw in some fun stories that illustrate these models in action in order to get people to start negotiating more intentionally and more thoughtfully in a way that not only realistically gives them more value, but also in a way that builds stronger relationships and trust. And yes, I believe all those things are possible in many of the deals that we are negotiating. All right, then, without further ado, we're going to jump right into Chapter 2, titled The Negotiation Mindset. And this is from my new book from the Professional Sales Field Manual series. This is Field Manual 04-22 for negotiation, how to avoid the commodity mindset and stop leaving money on the table. As always, thank you for listening. 2.1, jumping to conclusions. It's August of 1984. A young man enters the frame. He's not yet 35. His father is a butcher and a high school dropout. The young man's name is David Falk. He's about to challenge convention and negotiate the most lucrative contract in the history of sports. He'll change global marketing and branding in multiple sports forever. In 1984, he's unaware of all of this, of course. All he knows is that he represents a unique athlete and the companies he's negotiating with aren't thinking clearly. While it now seems commonplace, professional basketball stars didn't always have their own signature shoes. Why? Well, because the dominant shoe brands, Converse and Adidas, argued that basketball is a team sport. Singling out one player on that team would break the team code, their thinking went. Well, David Falk, he rejected this. He believed his client deserved a signature shoe. Furthermore, he believed having one wouldn't make him a bad teammate or diminish his team's chances of winning. Falk made his argument. Can't do it, said Converse and Adidas. Now, Falk, a student of history who was so keenly observing current shoe trends, noted the obvious. Lots of athletes have signature shoes. Adidas unveiled Stan Smith's signature tennis shoe in 1965. The iconic Rod Laver followed in 1970. Converse had recently released tennis star Chris Everett's sneaker in 1983. Yeah, well, those are tennis shoes. And tennis is an individual sport, Converse and Adidas said. Well, Falk was a dog with a bone. He pointed out that Converse's Chuck Taylor All-Star, the best-selling shoe of all time that debuted in 1917, was itself a signature shoe. His name is right on it. Look at it, guys. Falk also correctly pointed out that Puma released Clyde Frazier's own shoe in 1973, and Converse's Dr. J Pro Leather shoe, which sold extremely well, arrived in 1976. Do you see, Falk was saying? All these stars have their own shoe. I represent a star, and he wants a shoe too. Can't do it, said Converse and Adidas again. After all, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, the two biggest stars at the time, didn't have their own shoes. It wouldn't be fair. So David Falk cajoled his client into meeting with a small shoe company that had already changed its name from Blue Ribbon Sports. Its new name was Nike. They gave the young star named Michael Jordan a signature shoe. And well, you know the rest. It turned out pretty good. 2.2, strong views loosely held. Negotiation isn't an event, it's a journey. Negotiation is also a mindset. It's a way to navigate your world every day. Channel your inner Bruce Lee and you'll embrace this very mindset. Now, do I mean you should savagely punch and kick your way mercilessly through the throngs of would-be negotiating adversaries? No, quite the opposite. Bruce Lee famously implored leaders to be like water. That's right, water.
This is what it is, okay? I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
You want to be adaptable and flexible, quick to adjust your thoughts and actions as conditions change. Mark Andreessen, a Silicon Valley legend who built the world's first web browser while a student at the University of Illinois, advises leaders to develop strong views based on earned insights, but hold them loosely. Strong views, loosely held. This is the negotiation mindset. 2.3, the negotiation ladder. To be an effective negotiator, it begins with curiosity, creativity, and active listening. Miss any one of these elements and you limit your opportunities to successfully negotiate a positive outcome. Constantly being curious, creative, and an active listener will allow you to remain fully present, a rare state of being in our modern world. Only when present can you be perceived as authentic, which is a prerequisite for being likable. Inauthentic people, as it turns out, are difficult to like. If and when people like you because you're authentic and fully present, you can then earn trust, the kind of trust that delivers mutually beneficial deals that are implemented easily and facilitate long-term relationships. So in this section here in the book, there's an illustration, lots of illustrations. I like to think in terms of visuals. We know this in the construction industry. We're always writing on things. We're writing on lumber, we're writing on drywall. If you've used the porta potty, you've seen people write in there quite extensively. So we want to make this really visual. So the negotiation ladder at the bottom are three things: active listening, creativity, and curiosity. Once you achieve those, you can then be fully present, and then you can move up and be perceived as authentic, and then you can earn trust. And then at the very top of this ladder, what we're trying to climb towards is to deliver mutually beneficial deals that are implemented easily and facilitate long-term relationships. If you don't believe that, if you're really targeting transactional relationships where I can screw somebody over for the maximum or minimum dollar amount, whether I'm buying or selling, and then move on and never have to deal with this person again, this book is not for you. But most of these relationships in the construction industry, the longer we work together, the more we know one another, the more profitable we can be, and the more enjoyable construction is. That's what I believe. That's what really is underpinning this book. So let's move on. 2.4, titled The 5 Rules. There are 5 rules to maintaining a negotiation mindset. They are, in order: 1, desperation is a repellent. 2, it's not about you. 3, profit equals price minus cost. 4, the L'Oreal principle. And 5, negotiation is personal. Master these 5 rules, add in a little drop of Bruce Lee, and you too can become David Falk. Asterisk. Actually, that's very unlikely to happen, but I want you to be excited about moving forward. 2.5 is rule number 1, desperation is a repellent. Just like dating in high school, desperation is not an attractive quality in people. It repels. Therefore, the first rule in negotiation harkens back to Herb Cohen's mantra, to care, but not that much. You must always be willing to walk away. In Chapter 3, you'll learn how to identify what that walk-away figure is, which is known as your bottom line, but never begin negotiating as if your life depended on it. If you are too close to the deal, you will make poor choices. If you, in fact, only have one offer and it's critical to your well-being, you'd be better off having someone else negotiate on your behalf while you invest your time on generating more plausible options. More to come on that in Chapter 6. My father always said, life is all about options. He also said, never trust a person whose first name is also a major US city, but that's unrelated to the topic of negotiation, and I've come to believe it's not great advice. Now, as a sales professional then, how do you expand your options? Cultivate caring, but not that much, and avoid reeking of desperation. Simple. Never stop prospecting. Never, ever, 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 ever stop prospecting. Continually build your sales pipeline full of exciting opportunities and advance them with passion and discipline, and you'll never feel stress about walking away from a deal. It's simple, but it's not easy. And it's been said breaking up is hard to do. Maybe, but it's undoubtedly easier when you immediately begin dating someone else who is better. 2.6 is rule number 2. It's not about you. The second rule of negotiating is, in fact, the first rule of selling, or leadership for that matter. It's not about you. Get over yourself. Fight the urge to think of yourself first. Think about them. What do they want? What do they need? As a corporation and as individuals, personally, what feelings do they have right now? What's their financial situation? What would they consider a fair deal? And what are their NFPOs, their needs and fears and pains and biggest opportunities to grow? How do you make them feel safe and in control? You need to KYA, know your audience, and failure to do so will lead to immediate loss. Here's an example. It's 2008. I had recently been promoted from an area management role to a purchasing role. I was not yet 30, brash, unreasonably confident, and committed to demonstrating my value to my employer. My very first day in purchasing, I asked my boss, what's the most significant cost-saving project I could take on to help the company? And without a beat, he replied, buying drywall direct. Now, up to that point, we purchased all our drywall through our installers. The drywall installers negotiated deals with the drywall suppliers directly, including a tidy profit for their effort. By purchasing direct from the suppliers, the belief went we would eliminate the extra cost placed by the installers. So I went to work. I scheduled a meeting with our primary drywall supplier, who's shipping millions of dollars of drywall to us every year. I informed them of my plan to buy direct from them or some other drywall supplier and eliminate the installer as the middleman. Would they help me? I innocently asked. The response was brusque. You'd be making a terrible mistake. We're coming over right now. Now, it's important to note here, I did not know these individuals, and they did not know me. Had these drywall supply owners made a few calls to better understand who I was, they would have found out a few things. Namely, that I was not yet 30, brash, unreasonably confident, and committed to demonstrating my value to my employer. An hour later, 3 men, all built like fire hydrants wearing identical Rolex watches, strode into my office and sat down uncomfortably close to me. This is dumb, they said. Why do you want to do this? I simply explained our belief that there was significant savings opportunity in buying drywall direct from the supplier. After all, I pointed out, that is how we primarily buy most other building products. Will you help me do this? I asked again. They aggressively talked over one another for the next 15 minutes. Several fingers the size of Polish sausages came dangerously close to poking me in the chest. Not only would they not help me, they told me they would do everything in their power to block me from executing the change. I thanked them for their time and showed them out, and then did what anyone who knew me at the time would have told them what I would do next. I made it my life's mission to not only buy drywall direct, but to do it from anyone other than these cats. And within 90 days, we were buying drywall direct, and they were right. It was a giant pain in the ass, and it was hard. And our projections would prove accurate. We'd save well over $100,000 in the first year alone, while receiving the exact same product installed by the exact same people. So this unfriendly drywall trio went from shipping 75% of all the drywall necessary to build more than 1,000 homes to 0%. These men were not curious. Other than a few interesting swear word combinations, they were not that creative, and they didn't listen at all. In the negotiation classic, Getting to Yes, the authors write, it has been said that the cheapest concession you can make to the other side is to let them know that they have been heard. These fire hydrants not only didn't make me feel heard, they failed to realize that they were even in a negotiation. Their only concession, which we'll talk about more in Chapter 3, to me was a trio of middle fingers. Know your audience. It's not about you. 2.7 is rule number 3, which says profit equals price minus cost. A common error in negotiation is to accept the equation that cost plus margin equals price. Cost plus margin equals price. Now, what's the cost of the thing you're selling? How much money do you make from it? Margin. All right, then there's your price. Cost plus margin equals price. How can that be wrong? Well, it's wrong in 3 important ways. Now, there's an asterisk here. My editor is forcing me to disclose that cost plus margin does in fact equal price. Fine, but in a negotiation, that mindset will kill you, so let's keep reading. First, it's critical to remember what one of my bosses at Pulte Homes, Tom Blancett, always said. Price to the market, not the margin. Price to the market, not the margin. Now, what does that mean? It means you may be leaving money on the table if you ignore the value of your solution to the market and focus solely on tacking on a margin on top of your costs. Now, do you think a home builder determines its $250 price tag to add an outlet in the den by adding margin on its cost? It does not. A home builder thinks, what's the most we can reasonably charge for an extra outlet without customers freaking out after we alert them to the fact it's much harder to add it after the drywall is installed? The fact that an additional outlet requires a few dollars worth of wire and plastic, plus a few minutes of an electrician's time, are entirely besides the point. Second, if the equation cost plus margin equals price rules the day, a savvy negotiator will narrow down all discussions to your margin. How dare you, sir, tell me how to run my business or price my products? Let's take a good, hard look at your margins. Third, this equation ignores the most important thing in business: profits. It's not what you make or how you make it. Business is all about what you take home. That is, profits. Put profits first and lock in this equation. Profit equals price minus cost. Now let's focus on the cost drivers. What are the variables that drive up costs? How can we collaboratively and creatively eliminate waste to drive down the costs, thereby allowing both of us to earn higher profits? Inefficiencies abound if we observe with curiosity, think creatively, ask questions, and listen intently. We'll dive deeper in the two aspects of cost for the buyer and seller, the total cost of ownership versus cost to serve, in Chapter 4. 2.8. Rule number 4 is the L'Oreal principle. Now, I stole the L'Oreal principle from the president of Scher Brothers Lumber Company in Minnesota, Mark Scher. During a keynote a few years ago, Mark referenced his infatuation with Meredith Baxter Birney, Alex P. Keaton's mom, Elise, in The Family Ties to me, Nancy and family to him, and her connection to sales. It was her punchline in those L'Oreal commercials Mark recalled.
Just this once, I thought you should see my hair color with my hair unstyled, to make a point. It has to be this soft and this silky when it's wet, to feel this soft and this silky now. And only one thing gets the credit for that. Preference by L'Oreal. Preference actually conditions my hair every time I color it. So I get soft, silky, touchable hair. And if I pay more, I feel I get more. And I'm worth it.
If I pay more, it's because I'm worth it. As a sales professional and negotiator, you must believe you are worth it. If you don't believe it, why would anybody else? During a negotiation, where you start will impact where you finish. If you ask for more and firmly believe that you are worth it, you will frequently get more. 2.9 is rule number 5. Negotiation is personal. Negotiating thoughtfully isn't like riding a bike. It's more like playing the French horn. In order to be good at it, you must practice it often. Unsurprisingly then, poor negotiators in business are often poor negotiators at home. If you don't negotiate well at home, it's irrational to believe that you can flip a switch and become a good negotiator on the job. Negotiation is a mindset, and it begins in your personal life. So, how do you do that? You can start by sprinkling in core negotiation vocabulary in your day-to-day conversations at home. You can say things like, seems like we need to expand our options here, Timmy. What other ideas can we come up with? Gee, Samantha, looks like you invited Captain Tioli over for dinner, didn't you? Because that sounded like a take it or leave it offer, huh? While you are absolutely grounded until Christmas, maybe I can talk to your mother about some concessions you can include in your counter offer. Your opening offer was ridiculously high as you tried to anchor a 6-figure price in my mind. I see what you did there, and I respect it, but my bottom line is $500. Now you get the idea. Using the terminology learned in this book in your personal life is the first step towards negotiation mastery. The next step is this 3-question script you can use nearly any time you make a purchase, including Starbucks. But again, you want to pick your battles wisely as your time is valuable, and their friendliness has limits. So question number 1, is this your best price? Easy enough. The hard part comes right after you say this, and there is silence. Now, we'll talk more about silence in Chapter 5, but embrace the silence. Ask the question and shut your mouth. Resist the urge to fill the void with your speech. You will be surprised to find this 5-word question, is this your best price? It results in immediate savings. However, set your expectations low and anticipate hearing, yes, it is. When that happens, move on to question number 2. Are there any promotions or discounts going on right now that I should be aware of? Again, ask the question and keep your trap shut. Let the awkward silence do the work for you. As we've discussed already, people wish to avoid confrontation. The person you're asking will more than likely think about how they can help you. Let them ruminate on that for as long as it takes. Again, let's keep expectations low and assume they'll say, nope, sorry. And if that's what you hear, proceed to question number 3. Question number 3 is, we are trying to save for, you're going to insert something meaningful. Is there any other way that you could potentially help us save on this investment? You're now conveying that you've got some big dreams and you're hoping to get just a wee bit of help. This something meaningful I refer to most often is my son's college education. My expectation is that it's going to cost our family about $10 million to send this kid to college for 5 years. Oh, college is only 4 years, you say? KYA. Know your audience. I know mine. And we need all the help that we can get. So to point out the obvious, you're less likely to pluck the heartstrings, the emotional connections that are connected to the purse strings, if your something meaningful is not a new weed whacker or a Ferrari SF90 Spider. Not that either are trivial, but the former is relatively inexpensive, and the latter is ridiculously expensive and dislikable. Asterisk here, people don't like people who drive Ferraris. There, I said it. Sorry, not sorry. Now the wording here is intentional, so stay on script. The second half of this question is a request for help while identifying the purchase is an investment. This is important. By referring to the purchase at hand as an investment, you're signaling respect for the value, not simply sneering at the purchase price. And again, for the last time in this chapter, I promise I will remind you to ask the question and shut up. Silence is golden if you let it perform its magic. That's it. Is this your best price? Are there any promotions or discounts going on right now I should be aware of? We are trying to save for something meaningful. Is there any other way that you could potentially help us save on this investment? In the bonus video number 7 in this online program, you'll hear how my 10-year-old son saved $62 by asking question 1 and 2. That 5 minutes of training in the car before we went into the sporting goods store was totally worth it. Mark Swatsworth, the regional manager of Lesser Lumber in Pennsylvania, shared the following story with me after I shared the 3-question framework in a workshop in January of 2022. Bradley, I tried your negotiating tactic while in Florida for a buying show. We decided to play a round of golf at a nearby resort. Their regular rate was $149 per round. Seeing I was picking up the tab for 2 players, the fee would have been $298. Once the employee at the pro shop told me the price of the greens fees, I asked him question 1, is this your best price? And got a yes. I then asked question number 2. Are there any promotions or discounts going on right now that I should be aware of? Quick answer was no. However, I mentioned I was staying at a sister resort, and did that qualify me for any additional discounts? Answer then came back, yes. They do offer a 20% discount for those guests. Boom, 20% off. Thinking of question 3, I said, I see you have a twilight rate later today. Seeing it looks to be very busy and play will be slow, would you consider giving us the twilight rate early? Boom. Price went from $149 down to $99. So we started at $149, then went down to $99, and after the additional 20% off, ended up at $79.20 instead of $149, for a total savings of $139.60 for 2 greens fees. Not bad at all. As Mark's story illustrates, you cannot be afraid to ask for what you want. The worst that can be expected is a quick and courteous yes, no from the 3 questions from the seller. But such is life. Care, but not that much, right? So in the interest of not having a 2-hour episode, I'm going to jump ahead to 2.10 as we wrap up chapter 2. It is titled Leap of Faith. So there they are, the 5 rules to maintaining a negotiation mindset. Number 1, desperation is a repellent. Number 2, it's not about you. Number 3, profit equals price minus cost. Number 4, the L'Oreal principle. And number 5, negotiation is personal. David Falk, who we discussed earlier in this chapter, demonstrated all 5 rules in his negotiations with Converse, Adidas, and Nike. Jordan was the 2-time College Player of the Year, a national champion, and the standout from the 1984 Olympics. Falk was far from desperate. Furthermore, in pursuing Nike, a company desperate in its own right to break into basketball, Falk knew he had additional leverage. See rule number 1. Falk, he got to know Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, really well. He listened intently, rule number 2, and structured a deal with lower costs, rule number 3, to help the young firm while maximizing Jordan's upside if and when they sold a ton of shoes, rule number 4. The result? Jordan and Nike formed one of the most profitable partnerships in history. Within 3 years, Nike nearly doubled its sales. In 1997, Nike spun off the Jordan brand, which generates more than $15 million in sales every single day of the year. Incredibly, the Jumpman logo now adorns not only NBA, college and high school basketball jerseys, but also soccer and football jerseys as well. Now, think about that for a moment. A basketball logo is worn proudly on sports teams other than basketball. That's what negotiation can achieve. In related news, David Falk's net worth is estimated to be north of $50 million. All right, friends, as always, thank you for listening. We are in the final stages of our final edits for the new book on negotiation. If you are interested in downloading Chapter 2, so part of which I just read, feel free to email me directly at bradley@bradleyhartmanandco.com. You can also go to bradleyhartmanandco.com/tools and insert the password Hartman, all lowercase, HARTMANN, and you can find it there as well. Our goal is to make you more confident and help you build stronger relationships and save more money personally and professionally. And again, we're doing all of this, we're giving all this away to see if you might be a good fit for us in the OSR Academy so we can work together to build better salespeople. If you're interested, again, email me directly at bradley@bradleyhartmanandco.com. By Friday, June 23rd, if you've not enrolled, the price is going to go up by $1,000 from $18,495 to $19,495. So if you're interested, you want to enroll, save the $1,000. If you don't, take the free tools, download this negotiation chapter, share it with your team, and run a better business, and we will find a way to collaborate somewhere down the road. So as always, thank you for listening. We're going to close out like we always do with our leadership mantra. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.